It's time to talk sports. It's Hacksaw's Headlines, a panorama of the world of sports, stories, comments, and opinions. Now, here's iconic sports talk show host Lee Hacksaw Hamilton and co-host John Riley.
Who wants to talk sports on a Friday? We do. You do. From the DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Center Studios in San Diego, we welcome you to a special Friday bonus podcast, Hacksaw's Headlines. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, along with my co-host, John Riley. We welcome you to our Friday get-together as we get ready to kick off what is going to be a really great sports weekend. This podcast is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations to serve you in San Diego and the new one in Orange County in Dana Point. You got projects, ideas for things you want to do in December or in 2025. You're going to need materials. You're doing Christmas shopping. Don't forget their gift cards. And if you need ideas, these can be your best friends at DIXIELINE Lumber. John Riley, good afternoon. I am sorry. There are just not enough hours in the day to cover all this. How you doing?
Good. Yeah, the baseball winter meetings are about to start, and we still got the football going on. Yeah, this is a great time of year.
Don't bother me. I'm going to be watching college football on Saturday, NFL football on Sunday, and paying every minute of every day starting Monday in Dallas at the winter baseball meetings. Man, there is so much to cover. A couple of business items. When we are done with what we're talking about, topics on the table, you're going to join us. It's Fans Forum. John, just briefly, for all the new people who are part of the live stream, how do they get involved in Fans Forum?
Yeah, so Fans Forum, this is your chance to have a question or comment in the world of sports. For Hacksaw, just drop your take in the live chat on YouTube, X, or Facebook, and we'll get you involved at the conclusion of Hacksaw's Headlines.
And if you like sports, I know you like sports, I invite you to join my website. Check my website. I write on it every day of the week. It's at leehacksawhamilton.com. First thing every morning, you'll be able to see everything there is in the world of sports as you're having your first cup of coffee. You're on social media. I know you're on X. I want you to join my team. I called it the Twitter All-Star Team. Just type in my handle at Hacksaw1090 and then hit the follow button. You'll get updates on all the things we do there. And we want you to share, want you to subscribe, find out everything we're doing on this podcast. So by subscribing, you will get the alerts every time we put something up, all hours, days, and nights during the course of the week on the YouTube channel. So do that too. John, let's get started because time is tight. Got a lot of different topics on the table. Where do you want to start?
Time is tight. All right. Championship weekend. Here we go. Oregon and Penn State to top it off.
Oh, we got great games. Great games everywhere. First one, this will be for the Big Ten Championship. And who's not there? No Ohio State, no
Nope.
Michigan.
Yep.
Big Ten Championship, the Ducks, the Nittany Lions. This is going to be a showdown. Oregon unbeaten. Dylan Gabriel, 3,275 yards passing, 24 touchdown passes on the season. Lost in the conversation how good that running back Jacob James is. He's got 1,166 yards rushing. These guys are going to present a real challenge for Penn State's very athletic defense. Nittany Lions, this is the best collection of skill guys I think I've ever seen James Franklin have. Drew Allar, 18 touchdown passes, speed wide receivers, big running back in Nick Singleton, multi-purpose fullback, tight end, wide receiver Ty Warren, and a very fast defense. But there's a piece of history. James Franklin has hardly ever won any big game his Penn State team has been involved in. Doesn't beat Michigan or Ohio State very well against top 5 teams. Real tough to find victories. I just think Oregon's got too many guns on offense, but this will be good because Penn State got guys who can fly and who can run. Second game, Southeastern Conference. They don't like each other. Georgia, Texas. Carson Beck, top yardage quarterback in the country. 3,429 yards, 28 touchdowns. But dude throws picks. If he throws picks in this game, they're not going to win. But they're really good at Georgia. Started the season, didn't do well, got upset along the way, but then came back. By the way, they did beat Texas very early in the season. Steve Sarkisian, he's got Quinn Ewers totally healthy. 2,300 yards, 24 touchdowns. He's got a running back that's gotten progressively better and better as they've gone along by the name of Quentin Wisner. Texas is tough, real tough. This is going to be the game of the day. Don't want to miss it. To me, the big question is, can they prevent Carson Beck from throwing picks? The weirdest game has to be in the ACC. SMU is in the ACC? Yeah, thank you. What a season they've had. 11-1. They're really good. Kevin Jennings is a quarterback nobody pays any attention to. He's got 2,800 yards throwing the football at SMU, 19 touchdowns, and a very balanced run offense. They're really dangerous. Clemson started slowly, and boy, have they rolled. They've done it with a young quarterback, Clint Klubnik, who people wanted out of the lineup after 2 weeks of the season. Klubnik has now thrown for 3,041 yards, 29 touchdowns, and that's a balanced run-throw football team. Clemson's not dangerous. I think SMU's run ends this weekend. And then the final one. This is the Big 12. This is Arizona State. This is Iowa State. What a job by Ken Dillingham. Second year with the Sun Devils, 10-2. He's got a big-time transfer quarterback, came from North Carolina State, Sammy Levitt, who's thrown 21 touchdown passes. He's got a running back who came from Sacramento State. Sacramento State, Big Sky Conference, 1AA, was never recruited. His name is Cam Skipo. He's got 1,400 yards rushing to complement everything Levitt does. Iowa State's got a quarterback who's won 17 games in 2 years. Iowa State's got 2,000-yard receivers this year. They just throw the ball down the field. This is going to be a fun game between two teams that nobody paid any attention to, didn't think they'd be in the playoffs race, but they are. Winner of that qualifies for the playoffs. And then there's the Mountain West Conference Championship game, where Boise State will try to continue this unbelievable roll. They're sitting there at 11-1. They get UNLV. You got the Heisman Trophy candidate, Ashton Jeanty, who's got 2,288 yards, pounding the ball this year with 28 touchdowns. They got Maddox Madsen, quarterback who's thrown for 21 touchdowns and only 3 picks. And their only loss was because of a field goal at the end of the game against Oregon on opening day. This Boise team is big time. And Vegas has come from nowhere. What a job Barry Odom has done, the former Arkansas coach. He's got Huck Malik Williams. He's got a big running game. He's got a couple of big play down the field wide receivers. These guys are 10-2, and the Rebels beat Kansas, and they beat the University of Houston when both those teams were upper echelon in the Big 12 conference. So this is going to be a good game. But Boise is Boise, and Boise is loaded, and Boise's playing at home. Boise, UNLV for the Mountain West. So, John, those are marquee games on the Friday night schedule. Boise plays tonight, and on the Saturday schedule, don't miss any of these. What do you think?
Boise's tonight, right? Okay, good. So I look at this list, and the thing that jumps out to me is look at all those Pac-12 teams in there. And it's nice to see that our local teams here on the West Coast are making an impact in the Big 10 and the Big 12. But I've got a couple of questions. So first of all, why did Indiana not make the Big 10 championship?
Because they lost tiebreakers. They had one loss in the season, but because of tiebreakers, other people were rated higher than them. I mean, it was a traffic jam at the top, but Indiana got beat right at the end of the season.
Well, because, Indiana lost to Ohio State, but I guess Penn State had one loss as well. So, a tie-break thing. It's weird, like you say, SMU on that list. I think of Eric Dickerson, and then I think of the death penalty. It's just bizarre to see them there, but what an accomplishment. Is SMU, do you think, has a chance to come to the Pac-12?
No, I think they're locked into the ACC, and they're getting a fair share of money, and they have unbelievable financial support, which allowed them to make the strange move. SMU, Southern Methodist in the Atlantic Coast Conference. How weird is that?
Very weird. The final comment I'm going to make is about Boise State. I've seen projections that they're going to get a first-round bye in this college football playoff. Is that how you see it?
If they win this game, they're automatically in. And they get the bye not only because they won the Mountain West Championship, but they get the bye because they're going to be ranked inside the top 10.
Nice.
And they're going to have a higher rating than whoever comes out of the Big 12 conference and a higher rating than anybody in the ACC in the polls.
Okay.
So that's why Boise's going to get a first-round bye.
Good for them. Yeah, that's good.
So all things college football, this is going to be fun. The playoffs start next week. No, they don't. They actually start tonight and tomorrow.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You got to play in to get in.
The implications are really significant. And Oregon-Penn State's going to be a fun game. And Georgia-Texas is going to be a war.
They already played each other once this year, didn't they?
Early in the season.
And
Georgia beat them.
Georgia won. Okay.
Well, that was early in the season.
Well, maybe some payback time.
We got it. Okay, we go from that. Next topic on the table.
Next topic on the table, Chargers-Chiefs this weekend. Big game, Lee.
Oh, huge game. Nice phrase you put up there on the headline, litmus test. You know, the Chargers have talked about us, preached Jim Harbaugh, tent revival conversations about how great they are. Well, they've been great 3 weeks in a row. You know, they could have lost, should have lost to Cincinnati, got punched in the mouth by Baltimore, probably should have lost had they not gotten a Kirk Cousins early Christmas gift with all those bad throws in Atlanta. Now they're at Arrowhead Stadium, Sunday Night Football. This game would be all about the quarterbacks, Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes. I guess the burning question I have, aside from your phrase, litmus test, which offense is going to be able to move the football? Because they've both been erratic. The Bolts, get this, with Justin Herbert at quarterback, the Chargers have 3 offensive touchdowns in their last 27 possessions.
Wow.
He's just not moving the football very well. Herbert has got 2,700 all-purpose yards. He's got 13 touchdowns and only 1 interception. In fact, the Chargers lead the league with the least number of turnovers in the NFL. Chargers have turned the football over only 6 times this season, but they're not moving the football up and down the field with very much consistency. You know, now they got a problem. Ladd McConkey's got 2 different injuries. Has hardly practiced at all. Had 9 defensive players, including virtually all their linebackers, did not practice for a large segment of this week. So they're kind of limping in to Arrowhead Stadium. The defense has got 13 picks and they got 36 sacks. And the defense is allowing third down conversions of only 33%. So those stats are pretty good. But the last 3 weeks, they've given up third downs, they've given up yards, they've given up touchdowns. So I just don't know if the Chargers are a complete football team. This is going to be a challenge for Justin Herbert. As for Kansas City, Mahomes, he's got 19 touchdowns. He's got 11 interceptions this season. The big plays of the offense during the Tyreek Hill era are now gone. Big problem, they've had injuries, obviously, losing 2 wide receivers and then losing Isaac Pacheco. But it's more than that. They got huge problems at left tackle and right tackle. Those guys are like turnstiles at Grand Central Station letting people through. That's why Mahomes has been sacked 36 times. That's why his stats are down. That's why he's only thrown 19 touchdown passes this season. Travis Kelce, 73 catches on a season. I'm still waiting for Kansas City to get DeAndre Hopkins and Xavier Worthy really into the pass package, because it's been more tight ends and it's been down the field to the wide receiver guys. They do get Pacheco back. He might even be the starting running back this weekend. Matt Araiza, what a rookie season. It's been very quiet. He's averaging 49 yards per kick. They put people on the long field, and they make you go the distance against a defense that's only given up 311 yards per game. The defense has got 24 sacks. As I said, they've allowed just 311 yards per game. So this is going to be, if Araiza can put Herbert on the long field all Sunday, it's going to be a challenge for the Chargers, who are a little bit deficient in terms of healthy talent now on the offensive side of the football to go down the field. Kansas City has beaten these guys 18 of the last 21 times they played. Chiefs have really dominated. Yeah. Patrick Mahomes, 9-2 against the Chargers. He's thrown 27 touchdown passes against the Bolts in 11 games. And his career record, nobody pays any attention to this because they're all caught up in what he does Sunday to Sunday. Patrick Mahomes' career record is 100 wins and 26 losses. That's pretty impressive.
Wow.
Yeah. And Andy Reid's career record in Kansas City, where he's got 3 rings already, 155 wins and 59 losses. And Herbert is only 2-6 against Kansas City. So I think it's going to be really hard for the Chargers, because I haven't seen in the last 3 weeks. And we talked about this early in the season when Jim Harbaugh was lecturing me and you and everybody else in the media about the greatness. I say, I haven't played anybody. Well, they almost lost to Burrow. They did lose to Baltimore. Should have lost to Kirk Cousins in Atlanta, and now they get Kansas City. So I think it's going to be really hard. And I still think the Chiefs, their best football is still ahead of them, and now they're getting the injured guys back. Now they're saying Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown's going to be ready to play when the postseason starts, and they just got Pacheco back. So if they can solve that left tackle, right tackle thing, because that's a real problem. I think they're really different. I think Kansas City, even though I say they've been unimpressive at 11-1, I still think you have to reckon with them if they get all the pistons firing as we get to postseason. So I think Kansas City wins. I think it's going to be a tough, tough day for Justin Herbert because you don't have the people around him. And John Riley says,
woulda, coulda, shoulda, because as you were saying how, the Chargers won games they shouldn't have, but so did the Chiefs. I mean, it seems like these two teams are similar, that their records are maybe a mirage of what they actually are in real life. I mean, so this game's going to be in Kansas City. It's going to be cold. It's going to be brutal right there. But I just don't see the Chargers being victorious here.
And
all
that noise.
You know it.
Kansas City has 8 come-from-behind wins. Kansas City has 9 wins by a touchdown or less. In crunch time, that coach, that quarterback, and that tight end, they find a way to get it done. It's absolutely amazing how many close games they played, but they haven't toppled. And they've earned 11-1, though I think it's been a rather non-Kansas City 11-1.
We need one of those old Stan Humphries games from the 90s when he rolled into Arrowhead and beat the Chiefs. That's always a tough assignment. I remember you always talked about that on the radio.
Yeah, that one game was the Super Bowl season. That's where the team came together with all the personal foul penalties and the incident on the field with Marty Schottenheimer. And way back prior to that, we had a game, and it was in late November. It was really cold. It was like 9 degrees. And Kansas City did not have a good team at that point. And the Chargers went in there with Marion Butts.
Yeah.
And they ran the hell out of the ball, and they ran them out of the stadium. It was so cold. You couldn't throw the football. It was so cold and windy, and they just lined up Marion Butts, and they must have run him 30 times, 35 carries, and he just mugged them. And the Chargers wound up winning that game, and the Chargers weren't anything great in that period of time either.
That's one of the all-time great football names, Marion Butts. So I think it's fantastic.
Okay, so that's where we are. AFC West. John came up with the idea. Litmus test for the Bolts. We'll find out which team's offense comes to play. We go from that to a bunch of other games around the league that are
the rest of the NFL. Look at this. Bills-Rams is going to be something.
Yeah, Josh Allen's got these guys rolling. They've found their running game. The defense has gotten progressively better and better. I mean, Buffalo is just amped to be elite. And after what they did last weekend, I think you have to subscribe to that. Rams are playing so hard with all their kids on defense, but they're facing a quarterback and a running back and a passing game. And then Matthew Stafford's going to face a really rugged Bills defense. Rams lose this, they're done. They'll be 6-7 if they lose it. Granted, the division is kind of messy. I just don't know if the Rams can recover. I think it's going to be a huge challenge for Matthew Stafford against the Buffalo defense. And I think, obviously, the Rams kids who've been just blitzing and they're playing really on the edge. But can they hold up against Josh Allen? Atlanta, Minnesota. Kirk Cousins' homecoming. I wonder if he's going to get booed, and booed badly, when he goes to Minnesota because he walked away from the Vikings. Minnesota's having a great season. Atlanta's lost 3 in a row. Cousins, 4 miserable interceptions last weekend. Couldn't believe in a game that statistically they dominated, he kept giving the ball up, and the decisions he made and the pressure, just absolutely terrible. So you got Minnesota against Atlanta. Seattle, Arizona. Geno Smith doing it by himself. 3,000-yard offensive season for the Seahawks. Kyler Murray. Now, they're playing better at home than they are on the road, and John Gannon's got that defense playing better. It's going to be a huge challenge, but Seattle's in first place for a couple more hours. But if they get beat on Sunday, then the whole world is going to be tied for first place in the NFC West. Pittsburgh, Cleveland. I don't know if we can outdo the snowball that we saw last week, but Jameis Winston comes off that 497-yard, 4-touchdown performance. They go play the Steelers, and all that defense and the blitzes and the third down stops and the takeaways. And Russell Wilson's coming off a 414-yard throwing performance. You look at that roster and say, how the hell is that possible? You don't have any game breakers. Yet Russell Wilson's thrown through for 414 last week. So this is going to be a fun game between the AFC North rivals. And by the way, they don't like each other. Not at all. And the fans don't like each other either. So Pittsburgh, Cleveland's going to be great. And of course, we had Thursday night football. Dan Campbell, how about that? Going for fourth down 5 times in the game, getting 3 touchdowns out of it on those drives. And Detroit holds off Green Bay. At one point, that was 17-7 Detroit in the first quarter. And I said, Packers are not coming back. Well, Green Bay started to pound the ball. And Detroit's defense, which is shredded by injury, could not get off the field. And that's why Dan Campbell did what he did. He openly admitted it this morning that he went for it on fourth down so many times because he could not put his defense on the field because his defense couldn't stop that running game. And if the defense had to go on the field, he was of the opinion Josh Jacobs and Jordan Love were going to get him down in the end zone again. I mean, because it was 17-7 and it wound up being a tie game really late. But Campbell's brassy. He's got no fear. He's got a lot of confidence in what's a really, really good offensive football team. His defense has just been shredded by injuries. So, John, put up, shut up weekend. What do you think?
Yeah, put up, shut up. I remember reading an article in Sports Illustrated, 20 years ago, and it was a high school football team, and their coach would go for it on fourth down every time. They never punted. And they said statistically, it makes the most sense. You know, when you're playing the probability, and not just fourth down when you're in enemy territory, fourth down anytime, no punting. Some people have even taken it further to extreme and say, well, no, not only no punting, but no field goals. We're going to go for a touchdown every time. Could that even work in the NFL? I don't know.
No, because the other team's got a lot of skilled players. The other team's got big gun quarterbacks. Other team's got great wide receivers and power running backs. You know, the NFL game is all about territorial game. It's, John, I'm giving you the football at your 8-yard line. We'll see if you can man up and go 92 yards against my guys. So that's why the kicking game, the punting game, the field position game is equally important.
But I think it's interesting that Dan Campbell figured out that his defense couldn't stop the other side, like you were saying. So why not go for it on fourth? I know. I just think sometimes football coaches are so conservative to do it the way it's always been done. You know, so that's why they're, you know, it'll be like 4th and 1, and they'll often punt it. But just moving on, the other comment I want to make is about the Vikings. I was watching Colin Cowherd, and they were talking about all the different coaches and who was, you know, the elite coaches. O'Connell getting a lot of respect right now, you know, in terms of what he's been able to accomplish, and he's still a young man.
Very, very much so. And they've rebuilt that thing. I mean, they had to rebuild when Cousins left, and Cousins was making unbelievable amounts of money, like $32 million a year in Minnesota. They had not really won. When he vacated, they got put in a real tough situation. They got J.J. McCarthy in the draft, and he got hurt with a knee injury that was worse than they first feared. And he had to play Sam Darnold because that was the next guy in line. And Darnold was big and physical and experienced, but had very little success while with the Jets. And all of a sudden, it worked. It clicked. They ran the offense that O'Connell wanted. Darnold put his arms around it. Darnold became more competitive. Darnold became more bulletproof in terms of throwing interceptions because that had really haunted him with the New York Jets. So no, O'Connell's done a great, great job, and the front office has gotten him some unbelievably skilled wide receivers. I mean, we all know about Justin Jefferson on one side. I thought Jordan Addison was going to be a big-time player when he came out of USC, and it took him a little bit of a while, and he's become a really dangerous guy, and they throw to their tight ends all the time. So O'Connell's had just a big impact with his X's and O's, and the front office has given him players, and O'Connell's ability to work with Darnold about this is what you got to do, got to be different. This is what we do here, do what I say. The guy's got a quarterback rating of 105. Last time Sam Darnold's name was mentioned, he was on the waiver wire, about to be unemployed.
Yeah. He's had a nice comeback. Good for him, because he was so much. Did he win the Heisman Trophy when he was at USC?
No, I don't think so. But he was really good.
Yeah, he was really good back in that day. But you know, I saw one of the headlines relating to O'Connell. It said that he is still very obsessive about the sport, but at the same time, he expresses a lot of empathy. And both of those skill sets, people skills, have really helped this team turn it around.
They believe in him right now. You know, but you talked about O'Connell's brilliance. Do you remember middle of last season when they were a mess? Who was the quarterback that had never practiced? Josh Dobbs.
Yeah.
Came in there and gave him 3 or 4 really good games that they wound up winning. I mean, I remember doing the podcast saying, practice? Who needs practice? Invoking my best Allen Iverson thing, because Josh Dobbs won a bunch of games for him, or maybe it was 2 years ago. But O'Connell's bright guy. He's done very, very well. So those are all things NFL football. We're going from that. Let's talk college football.
Yes, big recruiting day. This is, I see a lot of Aztec fans are really excited.
Well, do I throw cold water on you now or wait till the show's over? I don't want you to get chilled here in the studio. San Diego State signed 18. They signed a full offensive line, 5 O-linemen. They signed a massively big defensive line. They got 3 defensive linemen. They got 14 more scholarships to use. They say they're going to use them in a transfer portal that opens up on December 9th. So things are going to move at very fast pace. But what's happening at San Diego State is what I feared was going to happen. Their players are jumping ship. They've gone into the transfer portal. There are 8 that have already announced they're leaving, including the backup young quarterback, Javance Johnson, who we had flashes who I thought played very well. He's not staying, including the young wide receiver, Jordan Napier, who really came on, caught 43 balls. He's gone. Jalen Armstead, who never really got a chance to get off the bench this year because of Marquez Cooper, he's opted out. He's going to transfer. Florida State quarterback A.J. Flynn's gone. So I don't know how Sean Lewis is going to be able to make any progress if he keeps losing volumes of players. Last year they had 42 going to the portal, didn't want to stay and be with the new coach. 11 of them were veterans who wound up going to big-time other programs and playing and starting. If he can't maintain the guys he's recruited, then he's going to just he'd be filling holes year by year. How do you make any progress? Remember the TV show Sesame Street? Ernie and Bert. Sesame Street.
Yeah.
Brought to you by, the word of the day at San Diego State is continuity. And if he can't have continuity from year 1 to year 2 because he's losing another group of players, that's a big-time problem. So we'll see. I mean, he talks a good game, Sean Lewis does, but they were 3-9, and now he's got 8 guys already into the portal. And he's losing 24 guys who are graduating, led by Marquez Cooper. So no decision yet on Trey White, but I would assume Trey White's going to get offered a pile of money by somebody as a pass rush guy, and he might be going somewhere big time too. So it's a big issue there. USC Trojans, 6-6 football season. Nobody's forgotten this. This is just not good. Trojans, 13 players decommitted. 13 from the beginning of the football season till the morning of signing date this past week. 13 vacated the program. Then Lincoln Riley lost his linebacker coach, Mark Entz, who was just hired to take the Fresno State job. Entz was really good at what he did. He was a former head coach at North Dakota State, 60-10. 1 year at USC, gets hired by Fresno yesterday. So on signing day, their top 2 linebacker recruits left. They went other places rather than stay at USC because the guy that recruited them isn't going to be at USC. They got 1 quarterback. They had lost a top quarterback. The attrition is really hard. They've lost so many players. They lost 2 potential starters in the offensive line, just announced they're transferring. It's just a bad set of circumstances for Link Riley, and they're 6-6. And this seems like a low point in Trojan football. And at UCLA, boy, what a bad 24 hours. The quarterback of the future, who had started this season, in the middle of the season, Justice Martin, jumps into the transfer portal the morning of signing date. Logan Loya, top wide receiver, he goes into the transfer portal. TJ Harden, top running back, he goes into the transfer portal. Then they lost their top recruit, a quarterback, went to Arkansas at the last minute, lost a receiver, went to Arkansas, and lost a defensive end, went to Notre Dame. And if that's not enough, they just fired Eric Bieniemy.
Really?
as offensive coordinator, assistant head coach after 9 months on the job.
Unbelievable.
Obviously, that's got something to do with the loss of the quarterback who, the morning of signing, signed at Arkansas instead of UCLA. Also got something to do with the fact that Bieniemy's playbook was too complicated, too much verbiage. They were 117th in total offense, 126th in scoring, 130th in running the football in Division I. There's only 133 schools. So this turned out to be really bad. Bieniemy was asked to leave, is gone. 9 months into the job, and I thought he was going to be a massively big difference maker for Deshaun Foster. So, John, I think there's issues at San Diego State. They need continuity. There's a lot of issues at USC about game management, play calling, and why people, 13 defected from USC's recruiting list. And the mess now that UCLA's got, losing guys in the portal and then making the decision to get rid of Eric Bieniemy. So you got a lot to talk about.
There is a lot to talk about, and it's complicated. So we're talking about a lot of these high school players that we really don't know. Now, the coaches and the recruiters know, not me. But I'll say this, is that I expected there were going to be a lot of guys jumping ship at San Diego State because, to your point, they played Cooper like all the time at running back. They had 3 or 4 other running backs that barely touched the ball. So them leaving, the backup quarterbacks leaving doesn't surprise me, because apparently one of the new quarterbacks that has been recruited
from Long Beach
is a really highly ranked guy.
Yeah.
So maybe he's better than Duffy or the other kid was Johnson. Yeah. If he's better than those characters. It's funny too, the SC and USC, such prestigious schools academically. They're kind of seeing this in athletics, what happens in academics, where people will commit to a college, but then they commit to 3 or 4 other colleges, and they see what better bids come in, and then eventually they take the sweetest pot. Right?
That's what's happened. I mean, and the fact that UCLA is like an outcast. I don't think anybody emotionally really believes that they have any future in the Big Ten, but they're in the Big Ten. Now, there's a lot of people don't believe that USC's got the right coach in Link Riley, and only time will tell whether they stay with this guy, though he's being paid volumes of money. So UCLA's got a huge player personnel problem, and obviously a coaching problem. And it's shocking to me that 13 marquee players, including 9 from California, decommitted and went other places. Notre Dame recruited as many kids in this state as USC recruited. And this is USC, Trojan football, student body right, and all that. Just wow. So we'll track this as we go. The transfer portal opens on Monday, December 9th. That's when officially everybody signs to go to the portal, and you can start signing guys out of the portal. We'll see how quickly that Sean Lewis moves, and then we'll see what happens with SC and UCLA, because they're going to have to be active in the portal because they lost so many players.
All chances to improve these teams, and all 3 of them need to improve.
All 3 of them right now, it's a lot worse than anybody could have ever imagined.
Yeah.
Not good at all. Hey, we get to halftime. This podcast brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations to serve you in San Diego. You got projects for 2025. You're going to need materials. You're looking for ideas. Hell, they help me with paint color schemes. They can help you. They could be your best friend, become your consultant. Thinking projects, think DIXIELINE Lumber. Couple of program notes before we go to the second half of our Friday bonus podcast. You like sports? That's my website address right there on the top of the screen, leehacksawhamilton.com. Check my website out when we're done with this podcast. You'll be amazed at the volume of information. And then make a mental note. First cup of coffee every morning, punch up my website. You'll get all the stories of the day. I do what nobody else does on sports websites in terms of information. Secondly, you're all on social media. I know you're on social media. I know you're on X. I want you to join my team, Hacksaw's Twitter All-Stars. Just type in my handle, at Hacksaw 1090. Hit the follow button so you can join us. Want you to share, tell everybody what we do. Want you to subscribe. By subscribing, you will get the email alerts every time we put something unique and different up on the YouTube channel. We do that quite a bit. And when we're done, today's an all-time record number of viewers on a Friday. Hell, maybe we should do this every Friday rather than Thursday, John. But all-time record number of live stream viewers today. But when we're done, after we do the topics on the table, you take over the podcast. He calls it Fans Forum. Go ahead, explain to all these new people.
Okay, Fans Forum. This is your chance to ask a question, just like the old radio days on Mighty 690. You got a comment or question for Hacksaw, type it in the live chat, Facebook, X, or YouTube. We'll see it on our screen. We'll get you involved in Fans Forum very shortly.
Now, don't write a book. Don't write 21 sentences. We can't read 21 sentences. But you got a question, make a quick statement. Do it concisely. That way we can get as many on. Fans Forum right at the end of this podcast.
Have
John,
a take, don't suck.
Yeah, have a take, don't suck. That's called plagiarism. You stealing that from Jim Rome.
Yeah.
He'll be walking across the stage and knocking you off the stage. Okay, we move on. Let's go to the second half because there's more than football to talk about, John.
Oh, yeah, here we go with baseball and Juan Soto at the top of the list.
Yeah, baseball winter meeting starts Sunday. Baseball deals will probably kick in on Monday. We're waiting for the first decision. It could come Friday, could come Saturday or Sunday with Juan Soto, but there are late-breaking stories. As of noon today, the Red Sox and the Blue Jays asked for a second face-to-face meeting with Juan Soto, and I would assume that's going to be in Dallas before the winter meetings start. The Yankees had already upgraded their offer a second time. We're led to believe it's not only for the amount of money that Soto wanted, which is about $600 million over 15 years. The Yankees threw opt-outs in after the fifth year for Soto. Now, we're led to believe the Red Sox and Toronto are willing to match what the Yankees offered. And then the secret team out there is the other guy in New York, Steve Cohen, the New York Mets owner, who doesn't care about the luxury tax and has indicated, when you're done taking all these other offers from everybody else, you come see me and we'll talk about what I'm going to pay you to be a New York Met. The general consensus, there's 3 New York baseball beat writers that did a big roundtable last night, I should say. The general consensus is Soto's going to be a New York Met because Cohen is going to offer him more than the Yankees are offering him or that Toronto or Boston are offering.
That's a good call.
That's where we go with Juan Soto. Could happen maybe Friday, Saturday. But now the Red Sox and Blue Jays want a second meeting face-to-face in Dallas, so maybe that delays the decision. Other names on the board. Corbin Burnes, once the ace in Milwaukee, good season last year, Baltimore. The Blue Jays have made an offer to him. Toronto is committed to its fans. We are going to assign free agents. If they could get Soto and Burnes, that changes everything as to what Blue Jay baseball is all about. Red Sox are also interested in Corbin Burnes. The Cubs had early interest, but I don't know, the Cubs must be putting their money back in their pocket because I don't hear their name mentioned at all. The unique one is Alex Bregman, who everybody seems to like. Now, is he Soto? No, he's not. But he's rock solid. Multi-position player. Houston made an offer, 6 years, 157. He turned it down. He wants 6 years, $200 million. The Astros say that's kind of steep. But Bregman's name is being mentioned a bunch of different places. He's going to get signed. The latest to jump in on Bregman is Philadelphia. The Phillies, for some reason, want to make changes. And they're thinking they may get Bregman, and then they would turn around and trade Alec Bohm, their young third baseman, to somebody else. And the Phillies are also talking about trading Nick Castellanos, though he's got a pricey contract. So there's a lot of changes in the wind in Philadelphia. Willy Adames, really good player. It's been really quiet on the Dodger front, the aftermath of the Snell signing. The Dodgers, I've been told, are in on Adames. But get this, I heard the Yankees are in on both Adames and Max Fried. And you say, well, why would they do that if they're going to pay Soto all this money? The Yankees are in on Adames and Fried because they want to sign them both if Soto goes to the New York Mets. That's their backup plan. And the one that's become totally quiet is Peter Alonso. I think that's got something to do with the fact the guy hit 240. Yeah, he hit 41 home runs, but his batting average has been lower. He's more of a big bopper than he is a big-time threat every at-bat in the lineup. I think Alonso's going back to the Mets regardless of what Soto does. So those are the marquee names in free agency. So, John, you got an opinion on Soto? What are you worn out emotionally about love me not? I want 600 million or 700 million, or Scott Boras will talk to you about what we want. Go ahead. Give me your thoughts on the names.
We obviously talk about Scott Boras a lot, give him crap a lot, but he comes through for his clients.
Yes.
Now, remember, like, roll the clock back 2-3 years ago when Soto was at the Nationals. He turned down that deal, 15 years, $440 million. And we all thought, oh, you're never going to get more than that. That's the best you could. Oh, you're an idiot for turning that down. And look, man, these teams are falling over each other. He's probably going to get at least 600 million, right? Maybe even 700. And it's looking like Soto and the shuffle and his sly smile, he's going to come out the winner in this. Good for him.
No, but he's 26 years of age. And now if they're asking for opt-out so he retest the market when he gets to 31, that'll be interesting to see if these clubs follow up and actually go through it. I'm kind of worn out, though, by Soto and his theatrics and all that, and what I know about him, having dealt with him, and kind of worn out by Scott Boras holding the winter baseball meetings hostage.
But it's just every year that he does this, so here we go again.
Okay. Any comments on those other guys? What do you think the Dodgers are going to go? Do you think this Adames thing makes sense, or does Adames free to Yankee Stadium if Soto goes away?
I think to your point, there's like plan A and plan B, plan C for a lot of these teams. And the same is true with the Dodgers. I mean, obviously the Dodgers are trying to get Sasaki. They're trying to get a lot of other free agents in there. They've already signed a bunch. I mean, how much money do they have left? I remember when Willy Adames first came up with the Brewers, he was an excellent defensive player, but not so much offense. But then I'm seeing him batting cleanup for a lot of these teams. So he's really turned the corner.
And he's a multi-position guy. He said, I can play second, I can play short, I can play third. I think he's really, really gifted, and he's grown into a mature hitter with power.
And then wouldn't it be weird if Max Fried came back to the Padres? I know there's some people out there that are speculating that he's going to land here.
How's that possible?
Well, who knows what's possible? I know that Preller is scheming. He's in that back room. He's like wringing his hands. He's twirling his mustache. He's got some plans. You wait and see.
Okay. So that's what's going on in Major League Baseball. You got an opinion on free agency, the Soto situation? Where does it go? Jump into Fans Forum now. We'll try to get to as many as we can when we're done with this podcast. We're not done with baseball because now we're going to talk about the teams here.
Okay, yeah, Preller, and we'll talk about the guy up in L.A., Friedman.
Okay, so let's talk about budgets. The Dodgers' unlimited budget and the Padres having to cut payroll. I was told that ownership told A.J. Preller, your limit is 170. That's all you can pay. We're not going to 200 million. The Padres have 7 guys that are due pay raises. If they kept all 7, their payroll would go from last year's 169 to like 210. They don't want to do that.
No.
Because it's going to put them back into the luxury tax era. So that means he's got to get rid of players. So everything I can gather, Profar's not going to be here. Kim is not going to be here. And Tanner Scott is definitely not going to be here. So that's 3 marquee guys. They still have to make these decisions as to what they're going to do with the dollars they're going to pay Luis Arise, Dylan Cease, Michael King. And then they're going to have to fix the bench because all the bench bunch guys are gone probably for a pay bump. So AJ's got an issue here. Here's the other piece of the story, and it's been very quiet down at Petco Park. New York Post baseball writer John Heyman had just written, A.J. Preller has the inside track on Roki Sasaki.
Okay.
He has the inside track because A.J. has dealt with Japanese agents forever. When he was in Texas, obviously, since he's come to San Diego. A.J. is highly respected because of how he handled and worked with Yu Darvish and the personal problems that Darvish had with his family and letting him leave the team in the heat of the pennant race. And because the past history of Padre players, Japanese players, and the people that AJ has brought into work in the front office who come from the Pacific Rim. So there's a lot of positives in terms of AJ's knowledge of culture, knowledge of those players and how they should be handled, how they adjust to playing here. That's why they think the Padres have the inside track on Sasaki. Now, that being said, the Dodgers have Ohtani, and the Dodgers have Yamamoto, and the Dodgers have the ability from marketing deals in the number 2 market in the country to be able to do a volume of information on behalf of that player. So it looks to me that it's between one of those two, but it was really interesting for the New York Post to say that AJ now has the inside track on Sasaki. As to the Dodgers, yes, they got Snell. The Dodgers met last night with Teoscar Hernandez. Now they're talking about an extension. I was told the Dodgers are willing to go 2 years, maybe $25 million the first year, maybe $30 million the second year, with a third-year option. Now, Teo wants 3 years, 90, period, exclamation point. I don't know if the Dodgers want to give him 30 years, 30 million guaranteed for the next 3 seasons, but they just reopened contract talks. They let Hernandez go out and talk to other people. Red Sox, Orioles, both interested, but Teo fell in love with the Dodgers and kind of became a leader. Also, no movement at all on Jack Flaherty and Walker Buehler, and I'm just really surprised that they didn't move on them before they got Snell. But now maybe they've spent their money on Snell. Maybe they take one of the other guys. You know, if I'm the Padres looking for an affordable pitcher on a short-term rental, I wouldn't mind having Buehler for 1 year somewhere in the middle of my rotation.
Yeah.
Or Flaherty. But they haven't moved on either one of those guys. But right now their attention, from what I gather, is on Teoscar Hernandez because they want that power bat in the outfield. And here's the final thing. We've talked extensively about the Dodger checking account and the deferred contract. And a lot of baseball fans are screaming what the Dodgers done is wrong. It's not wrong. The union and the collective bargaining agreement say you can't put deferred money in. You figure out how you're going to pay it. You're going to pay it with interest. You're going to pay it without interest. And how does that involve state income taxes, et cetera? The Dodgers have 7 players under contract, John, with deferred payments. 7. The Dodgers owe $1.6 billion in deferred money that starts in 2028 and goes to 2046. That's amazing.
Easy money for LA Dodgers.
Oh, I know it's easy money, and you're the capitalist, so you don't care. Anyhow, so that's the latest on the Dodgers and the Padres. Your reaction to the New York Post report about AJ and his friendships. Make sense?
It does. You know, what's interesting is the amount of Padre Dodger smack talk in Instagram on the videos that we do with you is unbelievable. And there's a lot of talk on there about Roki Sasaki, and Dodger fans are very confident he's going to go there. But they did raise an interesting theory, is that Sasaki, because he's a Japanese pitcher, wants to be on a 6-man rotation. The Dodgers have enough arms to easily make a 6-man rotation, where the Padres maybe not. And they think that might be the inside angle that the Dodgers may get him.
Padres could always find a way to get to a 6-man rotation if that was the deal breaker. I just happen to think that based on AJ's track record of working to get players out of Japan and Korea and Taiwan, and the history of guys he's hired to work in his front office who come from the Pacific Rim, I think there's an intangible there that probably carries a lot of clout.
Didn't AJ learn to speak Japanese when they were trying to recruit Ohtani?
He may know 5 languages.
He's a savant, man.
Yeah, he really is. He's just really different. Yeah. So
was he the assistant GM in Texas when Darvish came to America?
He was one of the reasons. AJ was.
Yeah. See, he's plotting.
Connect the dots.
AJ's got something going. You'll love to see the whiteboard in his office.
Okay, that's where we are. So you're a Padre fan, you're a Dodger fan, you got a window to join us now. Just jump on board. One more topic on the table in baseball, John Riley. Go ahead.
The golden at-bat rule. I saw the chatter about this. This is unbelievable.
It's been nonstop. So that's the Commissioner, Rob Manfred, who's always got ideas. And let's be fair to Manfred. I mean, he's done some things over the objection of the union that have really made baseball better. That's why attendance is up. That's why TV ratings are up. That's why length of games has gone down during the regular season. I call it the Bruce Bochy rule. But Rob Manfred, let's just look at in his resume, he banned the shift. That's a positive. Pitch clock, that's a positive. I thought the ghost runner was a little corny, but it does make the 10th inning really worth watching. 3 batter rule for relief pitchers. That way we're not changing pitchers after every at bat. That's a Bruce Bochy rule. The pickoff move has made the running game more important. Bigger bags have prevented injuries. And this coming season, we're going to see the robo-ump, where each manager will get 3 challenges of balls and strikes, so they use the computer to challenge, not the computer for all balls and strikes, but just the computer for challenge plays. So he's done some things I think have really improved the game. But the golden at bat, where Shohei Ohtani bats in the 8th inning in his normal slot, and if there's a rally in the 9th, he's proposing you could put Ohtani in as a one-time hitter anywhere in that batting order during the course of the 9th inning rally. That to me is tampering with the game way too much. I'm sorry, I'm old school. There's a little bit of purist in me. That's a bridge too far for me. So, John, there's the laundry list of all the things that Manfred has done. I think you'd agree with me. Most of them pretty positive. Yeah, but you tell me what you like, dislike, and then just tell me, you want Ohtani batting against you in the 8th inning and in the rally in the 9th inning?
Well, yeah, if you're on defense, you don't want to have to face Ohtani like that. But let's break it down. I agree with you generally that a lot of those are really good rules. I mean, the banning the shift was, when they were shifting that radically, it was violating sort of the integrity of the game. And so they banned it, which is good. And I think, to your point, the golden at bat violates the integrity of the game. It's like you say, it's a bridge too far. But I got to comment on the ghost runner thing. This is a pet peeve of mine. It's not a ghost runner. It's a real runner. It's a real human being. But I remember as a kid, we would play like various versions of like wiffle ball and baseball. We would actually have ghost runners, and these were imaginary runners in our head that we all kept track of where the game was going, like 2 outs, man on second, and we all understood. Now that's a ghost runner. What we've got now is a real runner. And by the way, I like that change too.
It does make the 10th inning worth watching.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. So, and then, the big bags, the robo-ump, I'm desperate for that. I really want to see that come into play, and hopefully they just keep ratcheting up the technology. But the golden at bat, I don't know. I felt like maybe it was a little bit of a down slump in chatter for Major League Baseball during the offseason, and they kind of threw a bone out to the media to chomp on.
Yeah, exactly. And it smacks of a bad gimmick. I don't want to gimmick the game. I want things that are going to improve the game, not gimmick the game. I don't think this has any legs to stand on, and most of the players don't like it. Okay. All things baseball, you got an idea on the golden bat? Go ahead, jump on board. Last topic on the table.
The high-speed sports wire. Here we go. This looks like one of those CAPTCHA tests where you got to pick the one that's not a bicycle.
Okay. Names in the news. This came out of nowhere. I don't understand it. Bill Belichick interviewed at the University of North Carolina on Wednesday for their head coaching job. I was of the opinion that North Carolina was kind of brainstorming with him to talk to him about how you set up an NFL-type front office operation for your football programs. Because now the player personnel acquisition is so different in college football with the NIL and the transfer portal. You really need administrative people with experience in player personnel and in business to run it. That's what I thought that meeting was all about in Chapel Hill. He interviewed for the job. That's far-fetched. I mean, he's been out of college football for more than 25 years. He's been in the NFL for 24. Him walking in the door at Chapel Hill, it's such a different environment, such a different world. I think that's really a bridge too far for North Carolina. Second one is the shocker at UCLA. They fired Eric Bieniemy, offensive coordinator, assistant head coach, 9 months on the job, got blown out. UCLA was just pathetic on offense during the course of the whole season. The aftermath of what we hear from players, the playbook was too complicated, too much verbiage. The learning curve was too steep. And by the way, they didn't have a lot of great offensive players, and they turned the football over a lot. So Bieniemy's gone. So, this guy never got a head coaching job. He got let go in Washington after just 1 year, and now this happens to him at UCLA. Maybe he winds up in Kansas City next season doing things again. I'm just kind of really surprised at that. The third picture is Lewis Hamilton. legendary Formula One racer. Final race of the season is Sunday in Abu Dhabi. Lewis Hamilton's final race with Team Mercedes is Sunday. He openly admitted that when he announced he was going to Ferrari at the beginning of the season, he could have never imagined the unrest that it would have created with Team Mercedes. He had a miserable season. He's had a miserable couple of years. End of the season, he finally won 2 races. He had totally dominated until Red Bull and Max Verstappen grabbed the sport by the throat and owned it. And he got very frustrated with everything that was happening in Mercedes. He finally admitted today, before qualifying, that he could have never imagined the ill will of his business decision would have created with a team for the entire season. But he's leaving, and he leaves with all types of records, but he's exiting Mercedes after this weekend. And the last one is J.J. Redick, head coach, L.A. Lakers. You know the Lakers with the 2 superstars and the flawed roster and the worst defense in the league right now. The Lakers in the last 2 weeks have lost by 25, 27, 29, and 41. They lost by 41 points in Miami the other night. They play in Atlanta tonight. Can you believe not one shred of defense for the Lakers? Seems to be no pride. It's almost as if the players have quit listening to him because their shots are not going in. At the other end of the floor, nothing at all. Redick lost his mind in the postgame press conference after Miami. He just looked into the camera and said, I'm telling the players, you own this. The 41-point loss. It's not on me. You're the ones on the court at both ends of the court. You're not subscribed to what we're doing. You need to own this. So we'll see what happens in Atlanta tonight, whether they respond to him or whether this is the beginning of a cascade of problems. So, John, Belichick in the Atlantic Coast Conference, you kidding me? Go ahead, talk about those 4 names.
Yeah, well, Belichick going to college football is really weird.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm actually surprised that he is still such an attractive commodity in the NFL today, even because without Brady, he wasn't much, and all due respect, he's not a spring chicken either. So I'm surprised that he's out there. Maybe he what do you think of him as in the broadcast booth? Because he's in the studio. He does some pretty good analysis.
I think he's done better as a broadcaster than I would have ever imagined. And I enjoyed interacting with him, and I interviewed him 3 times. And some of the conversations were really intellectual and erudite. He wouldn't tell you about his left tackle. He didn't want to talk about game plans, but he'd talk about history and philosophy of football and why you do certain things you do.
Yeah.
I was fascinated by the guy. What are your thoughts on what's happened to Bieniemy?
That was weird because I remember when he got recruited there and with Deshaun Foster, and we thought, hey, here's a legit guy, a proven guy, credibility guy, and he's a big talker. He'll motivate the college students. We thought it was a perfect fit. And to see him kicked out in less than a year is just unbelievable. This guy was like NFL head coaching material just a few years ago.
Yeah, past tense, not right now. And he showed up with NFL credentials and an NFL playbook, and it didn't work in college football. And that's happened before. Mm-hmm. Just like going the other way. College guys going to the NFL, and they get overwhelmed by it. They can't do it either.
Well, yeah. So I remember we talked about Deion Sanders. I mean, that'll work in college, but I don't know if that's going to work with the pros. The other one, Lewis Hamilton, what's interesting is this is something that's just interesting to adapt to as an American, kind of embracing F1, is I'll see women in Europe really talk about Lewis Hamilton, and how he's a big star. And it's, a little bit of the sex appeal to the whole thing, but it's just how F1 has reached a lot of people that you would normally not think to be sports fans.
Demographics very different.
Yes, it is. And so I think it's great that Hamilton's back in the news because he was kind of pushed aside there for like about a year or two. So he's back and thriving, and I'm happy for him.
Just get it correct. It's Sir Lewis Hamilton.
Oh, that's right.
The Queen anointed him Sir Lewis Hamilton.
Mm-hmm.
And your Lakers?
This is comical because you've got LeBron, who's been struggling hitting 3-point shots. You look like the whole organization kind of bent its back to cater to LeBron, to hire his buddy JJ Redick, to draft his son in the 2nd round and have him play. I don't even know, is Bronny even playing in the G League anymore?
No, he's hurt.
Well, okay. So the whole thing is just turning into a disaster, and it seems like these players are saying, hey, man, I got paid. I got my contract. I opted back in. They wouldn't have been opted. They wouldn't have been able to get a deal if they could, but they could opt in. They're getting paid. And, man, I don't want to play defense. I want to play like it's the All-Star game.
And to Jeannie Buss, nice job. Look what you turned your father's legendary flagship franchise into.
Oh, the whole thing is a freaking disaster. And I think there's a lot to be said is that LeBron unquestionably is great talent, potentially good leadership, but it's just everything around him that happens either by direct or indirect consequence. It just turns it into a shitstorm. And here we are.
His galaxy has impacted the franchise.
Yes.
Very much so. Okay, this podcast is about to become your podcast. Fans Forum chat box is open. We're going to try to run through as many as we can in a short window we have here. Today's an all-time record. We had 335 with us on live stream. We've never, ever had that before. Hell, maybe we should be doing this every Friday rather than the Thursday schedule.
Yeah.
We'll have to see.
Yeah, and that was actually one of the comments, which we're going to get to.
I'll have
here.
my people call your people, and we'll
All right.
talk about that. This podcast brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations to serve you. You got projects for 2025. Think about them. And by the way, looking for stocking stuffers, think about the DIXIELINE Lumber gift cards for the guy in your house. John, go ahead.
Okay, so let's just go to this point here. Good. And Angel says, Hacksaw and Riley on a Friday. Nice. So maybe this is a good time.
Yeah, so we could do that and just send them off drinking on Friday afternoon when they're done with us.
Exactly. And remember, we originally did this starting Thursdays only when we first kicked it off.
And then we came up with Monday bonus podcast, and I don't know, maybe Fabulous Friday works.
We want Hacksaw back on the air 5 days a week.
No, not yet. But my favorite phrase is Beer Friday, Football Friday.
There you go.
Yeah. I'll have my people talk to his people. We'll let you know on that. Angel, thanks for joining us. Go ahead, next one.
All right, let's go here to Cal and talk some hockey. Afternoon, gents. Saw Jacob Trouba is now a Duck. Do you believe him and Radko Gudas will be on the same D pair, or will they split them up to play with the kids? The modern day Bash brothers are in Orange County now.
Yeah, Orange Country.
Orange Country.
The Ducks traded a 4th-round draft pick and one of their other defensemen mid-afternoon today to get Jacob Trouba, the captain of the New York Rangers. He's an offensive guy who can flash. He's big. He's tough. And that's the protege now of what that general manager, Pat Verbeek, wants, is he wants big guys in front of his goaltenders, and he's got another big one. I think they'll split him up. We'll see if they can match him with one of the younger guys there. So you got a skill guy on one side, and you got Trouba stay at home who can bash people in the front. But yeah, Ducks are much more physical now, and Gudas, he's a warrior, and he's the captain of their team. So that's a pretty good acquisition. They did not give up Trevor Zegras. They did not give up any of the other young defensemen. Did not give up Cam Fowler or John Gibson, because their names had also been mentioned in trade talks. But getting Trouba as a start, and the Ducks are playing better. I don't know if they're about to turn the corner, but they're playing much more competitive hockey with all the young guys that they've got.
Loving the reference to the Bash brothers.
Yeah.
McGuire, Canseco. That was a great run back in the late 80s. So it's nice to see Orange County. The Ducks are like turning it around finally.
Orange Country.
Okay, let's keep moving. Let's go here to John. And he says, Bieniemy was a hot name a couple of years ago, mentioned every time there was an opening. Now gone at UCLA. What the hell?
Well, didn't interview well for NFL jobs. And maybe some guys are just not cut out to be NFL head coaches. Maybe he just is a great X's and O's guy. But what I heard from UCLA was, he was really loud. He was the bad cop for Deshaun Foster. He was in players' faces all the time. But the playbook was so complicated in terms of the verbiage of the play calls that it was just confusing. And it took a lot of time to get the plays in, and then the quarterback had to read the defenses, and they got a lot of delay of game penalties, and they turned it over a lot. So maybe he's just too smart for the college game, too intellectual for the college game, but it's a setback because I really thought I'd like him. He played for the Chargers. All the stuff I knew about him leaving the NFL to go back to college to actually get his degree so he could go to Colorado and coach. I thought there were so many positives about the person, but obviously some guys are fit for a job here, but not fit for this job down here. So he'll land on his feet. Maybe he winds up going back to Andy Reid.
Yeah, he might be a better fit for the NFL. We talk about with head coaches, same with assistant coaches. But, the kids at UCLA are smart. Even the football players have still got to meet minimum criteria to get in. But I think it's to the point of if the playbook is too complicated, you don't want your players kind of thinking and processing all the time. They got to be able to make it simple so they can react and then show off their athleticism.
Well, if you're making a complicated play call through the headset to Ethan Garbers, the quarterback, and he says that in the huddle, this, and this, which involves the formation, involves the blocking assignments, et cetera. And they get to the line of scrimmage, and it's a complicated thing, and he's got to do his pre-reads, and he's going to change the play at the line of scrimmage. Now they got to process that information.
Yeah.
We're talking college kids here.
Yeah, they're like 19 and 20.
So I think
that's hard.
That critique is probably right on. Thanks for the comment, John. Next topic.
Okay, let's go here. Angels. He wants to talk about the Chargers. He goes, Chargers Chiefs could be an AFC playoff preview, and Chargers have a chance to catch Kansas City off guard and pull an upset at Arrowhead.
Except that Justin Herbert doesn't have everybody in the lineup. I mean, if Ladd McConkey can't play, and he's hardly practiced at all because he's been so dinged up, and they don't have J.K. Dobbins, which means they're not running the football very efficiently, even with Gus Edwards. And Quentin Johnston has now had a couple of real bad games in a row with wrong routes, drop passes, etc. And their defenses, all their linebackers are hurt this week. They had 9 defensive players, all marquee names, could not practice for chunks of time this week. It's going to be hard. And Kansas City's not going to let down because Kansas City still thinks they're in the chase for home field in the AFC. So you got a real dogfight. I still think the best football for the Chiefs is still to be played. And now with the news that Marquise Brown's going to be back before the playoffs start, and Isaac Pacheco is back at running back to team with Kareem Hunt, but they have to solve this problem. This left tackle, right tackle thing is a real disaster. Nobody around the league is talking about how many penalties those 2 tackles have had. And now they're putting DJ Humphries in at left tackle, and he's had a lot of injuries. He's a big old guy from the Arizona Cardinals, but maybe he'll play better than they were getting because they were moving guards into tackle, and they could not protect him. So I think the Chiefs just are too good, and it's Arrowhead. Arrowhead's really hard, and Justin Herbert's 2-6 against Kansas City.
Pacheco is hella good. I mean, that guy just grinds yards.
Fire plug.
Yeah, and just goes, and he catches big passes. But I want to talk a little bit about kind of a bit of a tangent. We're all upset about the hit on Trevor Lawrence, right?
Yes.
And he slid and got taken out by the Texans. He's been suspended. Some people have said that when quarterbacks are scrambling, they'll kind of fake the slide and then run further. And Mahomes does that all the time. So do you think that should maybe be a penalty on the quarterback if they're kind of faking the slide?
No, not at all, because he's not going down. I was so disappointed in DeMeco Ryans. I mean, he blamed Trevor Lawrence for the injury. He went down. Well, at the end of the day, he went down and he was on his wallet. The minute you go down, you give yourself up. And that linebacker, Al-Shirah, took 2 steps. Trevor Lawrence was already down and sitting. And Al-Shirah took 2 steps, led with his helmet, hit him with a cast on his forearm in the face mask.
Whoa.
So that's intent, attempt to injure. And by the way, the quarterback had already given up on the play. So now, if you're running along the sidelines and you're dipsy doodling, like maybe I'll step out of bounds or maybe I'll cut inside, you deserve to get blown up because you're still in play and you're still upright.
Mm-hmm.
But if Patrick Mahomes is sliding to the sidelines on his buttock, you can't. All you need to do is touch him if you wish. You don't even have to touch him. This guy blew Trevor Lawrence up to the point he was hospitalized, and now he's gone for the rest of the year. I mean, it was the intent to me, and the fact that he's a repeat offender. That's the thing that set everybody off around the league. It's the 3rd time he's had an incident nailing a guy either who was down or on the sidelines this year. He's also the one that had his hands around Tom Brady's throat on a tackle in Tampa Bay the last year that Brady played. And then this guy pulls out the race card and he pulls out the Islamic thing. These people are criticizing me because of who I am and what God I believe in. That is so far-fetched.
There's just so much of that story. But I'll say this though. Mahomes, he loves to do that deke thing, and that's the thing is when you play the Chiefs and you got like 3rd down and 17, it's not safe, because he can always do that. He can scramble, fake the slide, look like he's going out of bounds, to your point, and then carve it upfield. The guy is unbelievable.
He's so gifted athletically. And by the way, you bring up the third down number.
Mm-hmm.
I should have mentioned this earlier. You know what their third down conversion rate is?
Who?
52.
The Chiefs?
52% third down conversion in Kansas City.
Wow.
Because of Mahomes.
Yeah, the guy's
or Travis Kelce.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's just an amazing team. But yeah, I think to your point, they're getting all their all their guys off the injured list are coming back. They're going to be tough.
Is the wife going to be here to watch the pregame? I'm sure Taylor Swift is going to be on the pregame.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
We make some fun of that one for sure. Okay, let's keep moving here, and we'll go down. There's some interesting comments here. The first one was from Callan had a follow-up, and he says, "Hey, John, my Bash Brothers reference was to the Fulton Reed and Dean Portman from the Mighty Ducks films, but glad you also named McGuire and Canseco."
Bash Brothers fits. That works.
Yeah, that works. I like that. I like getting a little correction here. Let's go here to Flegel. He goes, Bieniemy has a long resume, but as you said, never a head coach. He did some recruiting for UCLA, but why no head coach job?
Didn't interview well in the NFL. And I don't know whether it's got to do with his persona on the practice field. He coaches players hard. He's really tough. The stories have kind of filtered out from UCLA this year because they closed practices. He did not use the King's best English when his players screwed up on the practice field. He was really vocal. And that was him. That was his style. Okay. But track record as an assistant, going back to Bill McCartney in Colorado, whom he played for, and obviously what he did at UCLA, and then what he's done in the NFL under Andy Reid. So he'll probably be back in the NFL as somebody's assistant, and maybe as a coordinator again. But I think the window is closed on him being a head coach because I think he's had 7 interviews in 2 years, did not get an offer.
Okay, let me put you on the hot seat. Let's say you're an owner and you have unlimited money and you can pick a new head coach. Would you go with someone like Bieniemy, who was a hot name for a while? Would you go with someone like Belichick, who was also a hot name for a while? I don't know if he still is. Or would you go for one of the hot, bright, offensive, defensive coordinators somewhere else in the league?
Landscape is littered with coordinators who have turned out to be great head coaches. It's also littered by coordinators who absolutely failed.
Right.
It's all part of the interview process. It's all part of me being an owner, talking to other owners around the league about this guy was on your staff. Tell me about him. Or talking to head coaches who had this guy as a coordinator on my staff. Tell me about him. It's all the gathering of information. So that's where it is. Belichick's a different animal. Belichick had total control of everything in New England. And they won because of Brady and because of Belichick's ability to teach a different brand of defense. It takes a different type of player to want to play on a Belichick roster. If Belichick is willing to come work for me as a coach, I don't think I'm going to give him full authority in player personnel because his drafts weren't real good. They survived because of Brady. And when he left, they left Jared Mayo with kind of a ragtag roster of guys. There's no playmakers on that roster. So I think I'd hire Belichick as a coach. And if he wants to coach again at age 74 with a 27-year-old wife, that's okay. But he would be my head coach, and he'd have input as to the type of player that he needs to build a Belichick system. So Jacksonville might give him both. He's got a relationship with Shad Khan, and I think both those guys in Jacksonville are gone, and they've been wrecked by injuries. It's a much better team, but they got a better team on IR right now, wide receiver and quarterback and running back, than they have on the field because they've been decimated. But Belichick might get the dual position there. If it's Jets, Giants, Raiders, I think he comes in as a head coach, but somebody will be above him to work with him, work for him, work together.
I remember back in the 70s when I first started watching football that every team, the GM and the head coach were always 2 different people. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until the 80s or 90s when you get one guy who was the king of everything.
There's not enough hours in the day to do the job.
Well, no,
granted, you got subordinates who work under you, but the job's too cumbersome. I mean, it is so time-consuming just to game plan and to do video and to think about X's and O's and what you want to run next week compared to what you didn't work last week.
Yeah.
So how do you have time to meet with scouts? And the scouts are on the road and they're bringing in reports all the time. There's not enough hours in the day to do it.
In your opinion, who has done it the best? GM and head coach all in one has had the most success.
Well, the guy in Kansas City right now, Brett Veach. I mean, that's superb.
No, but he's not the head coach too.
No.
He's not.
Oh, modern day?
Yeah.
Not many.
Yeah.
I thought you're just making remember who's the best general manager,
yeah.
player personnel. Guy in Philadelphia, Howie Roseman, and Brett Veach in Kansas City right now are the state-of-the-art guys.
Yeah, right on.
And Gutekunst in Green Bay has done a really good job. Now, Packers haven't gotten there yet, but man, they built that roster. I mean, post-quarterback era, post-Favre, post-Rodgers, they've done a good job in Green Bay.
Yeah, and plus the kid up in San Francisco.
John Lynch,
yeah, he's done a good job, I thought.
Yep. We'll say I think it's a tough job for one guy to do. If you've got a great working relationship, then it can be done.
Okay.
All right, let's do a couple more here before we wrap it up.
Oh, how about this one from David? And this is cool. And he says, David says, I have 2 tickets to Padres-Dodgers to give away to your listeners. I'll email them, Hacksaw.
Okay, we'll pass it on. I'll pass it on to John Riley, and we'll figure out a way how to do that.
Yeah, we'll figure that one out.
Thanks, David.
Okay, let's go here to social media and get a couple of comments here. And let's start with USC football. This is from Oldie 400. He says, running back was not a problem with Southern California. Woody Marks and Joyner are both great talents. Offensive play calling was horrendous. Didn't help that Moss isn't a mobile quarterback, but a good pocket passer. NIL been a killer trying to recruit top talent. Teams like Oregon, Ohio State, SEC schools offer more. But good news is SC is working on it.
Well, they're working on it, but you would have thought that it would have been a slam dunk with Lincoln Riley and his history of what he accomplished at Oklahoma, that he'd be able to go get anybody he wanted. He lost 13 players. By the beginning of the season to signing date this week, he had 13 national commits, a bunch from California, who left. Play calling, game management, that's a big problem. Erosion of the running game, which was a vital part of the greatness of USC for a long time. It's not what it is now. And the transfer portal has changed a lot of things, and NIL's changed a lot of things. But this is SC. We're not talking about East Carolina. We're talking about USC. So that's where we are today. He's got a road to run uphill, and we'll see what he does next year.
It's amazing how far off Lincoln Riley has fallen.
Yeah.
I mean, he was like a golden boy there like a few years ago. So, okay, let's keep moving. Let's get another comment here. Let's talk. This is a good one about the big brawl in college football. And this is from Kevin. And he goes, they shouldn't find any Michigan player for that because they ain't the first time and they've ever done that with the flag. We did it last time we beat them at Ohio State too. It didn't cause a brawl. It didn't cause a brawl when Baker Mayfield did it when he played for Oklahoma and they beat him. That was all due to Ohio State players getting salty that they got beat up for the 4th straight year and then act like a bunch of little babies.
It was out of control and it got dangerous because now you don't want, fans pour on the field. Now what do you got? Now you got something. There's not enough security guys out there to cope with the whole thing. They have the video of which Ohio State players threw punches to start this whole thing. I was really aghast that Ryan Day did nothing. He stood on the sidelines, did nothing to try to stop it. There was a similar incident at the end of Texas A&M, and Steve Sarkisian came out of the tunnel, went to the 50-yard line and grabbed his players and said, "We're not doing this. We're going off the field." And there was no incident at the end of the Texas A&M game because of what Sarkisian did. But there were 4 other games that there were scary incidents. And, pushing and shoving and being a man suddenly can become a fight, which could become a really bad brawl. That's what I have to say.
It's interesting how in college sports, the players fight, but in pro sports, the fans fight. It's just and when the guys grow up and become pros, yeah, they're my opponent on the field, but they're still my friend, So it's just funny how the dynamics change.
Okay, one more here on social media.
Okay, let's go. This is a good one here. This is from Botanical Brian. He goes, "Hey, old man, remember when Woody Hayes punched a player, huh? Do you?"
Hey, Botanical Brian, let's be respectful of the host. The host is bleeping brilliant. Please understand that. Yes, I was at a Christmas party. I was in the University of Akron. I'd done their games. And we were at a Christmas party with the coaches. We were just watching a game. And I went to the Akron U head coach was standing next to me. I said, "Did Woody just punch that Clemson player?" And they showed the replay. I said, "He sure as hell did." Of course, Woody got fired for doing it. So, you ask these guys to play on the edge. You ask these guys to play with great emotion. You ask these guys to play with physicality. But you need to draw the line. I mean, that was a great football game. It was a tough football game. It was a hard game for them to lose at the Horseshoe. But you can't have that kind of stuff, because that kind of stuff can escalate into something much, much worse. And you would never, ever want that. And so hopefully this was a one-time flashpoint that won't be tolerated again. But for Ryan Day to stand there and do nothing, and then in his press conference, post-game press conference, when asked about what his players did, his response was, "We're never going to allow anybody ever to do that on our field." He's sanctioning.
Yeah, not in my house.
Yeah,
you know, that's it.
Get off my lawn.
Yeah, exactly.
Jeez.
But I want to, the Woody Hayes comment is interesting. Take me back into the Wayback Machine when Woody Hayes was at Ohio State and Bo Schembechler was at Michigan. How would you describe those coaches during their heyday?
They were both Miami of Ohio guys from the cradle of coaches.
Hey.
So there was a lot of respect to what they had both done. And Woody had elevated Ohio State to prominence, and Bo came in and made Michigan something really special. And they might have been fierce competitors, and they might have disliked each other on game week and all that. And Woody totally refused to use the word Michigan. He only referred to it as the school up north. And, you know, the confrontations with Woody and the media were legendary. But at the end of the day, they shook hands and they respected each other. And when Woody passed, Bo was there at the funeral. So there was great respect, even though it was Ohio State, Michigan. But there was great respect because they were both Miami of Ohio Redskins.
Yeah, but, you know, that's just such a different era.
Oh,
you know, it's like when men were men and all that, you know. But it's just funny how they have permeated the culture of their universities and really the sports world, you know, because we still hear about, I want a Michigan man to run my Michigan program. That was Steve Fisher, wasn't it? Yeah. Or, I mean, so it's amazing. These guys, that war, that rivalry, Ohio State, Michigan, has got to be the top rivalry in all of college football.
There are great rivalries everywhere. I mean, I broadcast Arizona State, Arizona, the Centennial Cup. That's pretty electric.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to Civil War game, Oregon State in the mud. That was fun. Apple Cup is huge. Washington State. The old Oaken Bucket in Indianapolis. It's like the rest of the world doesn't exist. You're an Indiana or you're a Purdue fan. You know, Harvard, Yale. For those of us intellectually, they'll not be candidates to go to an Ivy League school, not like you, who was legacied into UCSD. But those who could go to Harvard, Yale, Ivy League, that is such a different environment. But boy, that's big time too. So those things are, those rivalry games are everywhere. Hey, listen, we thank you for being part of what's been a kind of a dynamic Friday. We'll have to think about this. If you want to email us, or how can we set up a line of communication? If people, would they rather have us stay on Thursdays, or would they really rather have us do a Beer Friday podcast? Because that's amazing. We got 360 live stream. We've never had that before.
Yeah. Usually we're in the high 200s. So
okay, so
it was nice.
How can they get hold of us? What's the best way?
Well, we'll go to leehacksawhamilton.com.
And my email's right there.
Yeah, you can click out and fill out a form, or just find us on social media, and we'll help you out.
Yeah. You want to do a Beer Friday broadcast every Friday, or you want us to stay on Thursdays to complement what we do on Bonus Monday? Hey, this podcast brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations to serve you in San Diego. You got projects, they'll give you materials and ideas. John, have yourself a great sports weekend. College football, NFL football. Monday, opening of the winter baseball meetings, and we'll be back on 1 o'clock Pacific Monday to talk about that too.
And yeah, we got Boise and UNLV tonight. So that's what I'll be watching.
And Saturday morning, did not mention this, does not have playoff implications. You know, damn well it's important. Mid-American Conference Championship game.
Oh, hey.
Ohio Bobcats, Miami of Ohio.
Now that's a rivalry, right?
Battle of the Bricks.
There you go.
In Detroit. That'll be 9 a.m. So that'll start my great sports weekend off and running.
Okay. And then we got Aztecs and USD tomorrow night too.
We've got a lot of things to cover.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for being with us. Have yourself a great sports weekend. Let us know if you like Beer Friday broadcast compared to Thursday. Thanks for joining us on Hacksaw's Headlines.
Join us again for Hacksaw's Headlines on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And find the audio version on your favorite podcast app. For more content, go to LeeHacksawHamilton.com.